What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. I know the answer for you, and it will lead to real truth. Don't look back to yesterday.
Now there are answers.
Tomorrow's on the
Welcome to
way.
Live Prayer.
It's waiting there.
And welcome to Live Prayer. I am Bill Keller. Good to be with you on this Wednesday evening. Pray it's been a great Wednesday for you. Glad you're with me tonight. If you're new to the program, you are watching Live Prayer. We come to you live in living color every Monday through Friday, 11 to midnight Eastern Daylight Time. Wherever you're watching me right now, all throughout this great land of ours, from sea to shining sea and from border to border. Thank you for tuning in. Our friends in other far-off great lands, welcome to you as well. Once again, I am Bill Keller, founder of Liveprayer.com, world's largest interactive Christian website. Reach a little over 2.5 million folks each and every day via the internet. Please check us out online. Web address coming up on your screen, Liveprayer.com, Liveprayer.com. So I pray you've had a good Wednesday as we're working our way through another week. Got a great program for you tonight, a little bit of Iran stuff that, of course, we are starting each program with, a lot of interesting topics. And I promise you tonight we're going to take care of the judiciary. It's something I've been wanting to do for about a week now, but a lot of these programs have been so pack-filled, it wouldn't do justice just to blitz through this topic because it is that critical. Not just to our day-to-day lives, but if we're going to have a functioning country down the road. I mean, it really is at that level. So looking forward to finally getting that information to you. 4 things I ask you to do for me each night in the program. First, pray for me and the program. Thank you. It means more than you'll ever know. Second, of course, is the Live Prayer Daily Devotional, written it every morning since we began almost 27 years ago now. Man. If you don't get it, go to my homepage, up right-hand corner. You'll see a sign-up link. Click on that. Ask you for a couple pieces of basic information. You'll be good to go. It'll be in your email each morning. Great way to start your day with a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of a spiritual challenge for the day, and keep you plugged in, right? Third, of course, is this TV program. Again, Monday and Tuesday were great programs, not just to get everybody up to speed with all the latest from Iran, but also the other things, the many other things happening here in this country, around the world that we need to be aware of and to understand. So please encourage people to just check us out. Tell them to try 2 programs, okay? Who knows? The first program, they may just be in a bad mood or something. And but if they do 2 programs, it's just too much. I get that. This is not an entertainment program. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to inform you. I'm here to make sure you understand what's going on in this big world around us, because as Christians, we're not of this world, but we are in this world for a season. And the more we understand this world we're in, not only does it help us to negotiate life better, but it also helps us to understand the problems others are having and how we can maybe be a light into their lives, right? So tell them about the Live Prayer program. Last, of course, is the fact that this is a faith ministry. You will notice immediately there's no advertisers on the TV program. You go to my website, there's just thousands of hours, literally thousands of hours of great ministry content, all produced here at Live Prayer over a quarter century now. There's nothing to buy there. There's nothing to pay for there. There's no little tricky places on the website. Well, if you want to see this, you got to get your credit. Don't play those games. Never have, never will. I'm here to bring God's truth into the marketplace outside the 4 walls of the church. Here to, of course, share people the hope and love of Christ and how they can be saved, and to help inform not only people of faith, but people that haven't made that commitment to Christ yet. Again, you know, what's going on in this world, and to hopefully be there at a time where they need prayer and understanding at a critical time in their life. And all that happens. We're here. We're physically here 24/7 now. We just celebrated 23 years on TV back on March 3rd, 27 years this August online. I've been in the ministry personally right around 34 years now. All possible. Not because I play manipulative games with money. Just share our needs, trust God, and just keep plugging ahead, one foot in front of the other by faith. You make that possible. Go to my homepage, up right-hand corner. You'll see a donation link. Click on it. Gives you our address in St. Petersburg, Florida, if you want to put a check in the mail. Also, there's a link to our credit card portal if that's more convenient. Amen? All right. Let's. One last thing, just real quickly. Let me just throw this in there. A week ago Monday, we started just a new feature of the Live Prayer Ministry. It's our liveprayer.com prayer by phone. This is where I put together a prayer each day. It then is available to you on your phone. My voice, no AI, no technical, gymnastics. I literally take time to record the prayer, goes in the system. And if you go to my homepage, again, up right-hand corner, you'll see a prayer by phone button. Click on that. It opens up a form. It's going to ask you for your name, email address, phone number. It's all going to also ask you what time zone you're in, okay? And what time of day is best for you to get your daily prayer by phone call from me, Bill Keller. It's not a 3-hour prayer. And, it's a very targeted prayer, less than a minute each day. But what a great way in the middle of your day, in the middle of all the hustle bustle, you get that call, say prayer by phone. You pick it up, hello, and you'll hear the prayer for the day. And if you're busy at the time you've selected to have it call you, it just goes into your voicemail. And when you get around to checking your voicemail, it'll be there for you, okay? Liveprayer.com, prayer by phone. Check it out. All right, let's pray. Father, we are thankful for another night together. Each night is special and unique, even after over 23 years of these programs. Tonight is unique. It's special. It was ordained by you from the foundations of this earth. Thank you for my friends who have come to join me tonight, a little time out of their lives. I pray for them and their families and that you'll meet their every need. Thank you again for this day we've enjoyed, the blessings throughout that we are so grateful for. And God, we just ask now that you will minister to us, speak to our hearts. Let us hear and understand all you have for us tonight. We thank you for it. Praise you for it in Jesus' name. Amen and amen. All right, so let's talk Iran. Not a lot. Each night, as you obviously know, I am making sure to give you the key economic numbers for the day, so you can kind of understand what this is doing economically, not only to your income at home and your personal finances, but those of the country and those of the world. Today was kind of a very a day with not a lot of financial movement. Oil's still at 98, okay? Obviously, we want to get it back down to about 63, 65, which is where it was before. But it's definitely holding under the $100 barrel number, which obviously the media wants to scare people to death about. And one reason I give you these economic numbers each night in regard to the war in Iran is because the media is out there lying to people that the economic house is falling down and caving in all around you. And it's just all lies. Oil again, still under 100, right around 98. The Dow lost them, I think about 600-700 points today. Just for reference, it's still only about 3,700 points below its high of 50,000. That's not even the correction, folks. That's just obviously some uncertainty about what's happening in Iran, but has not affected the equity markets hardly at all. And gold, again, I told you, that's your key number. trading between 4,800 and 5,200 before Iran. It's traded in that range over the 3 weeks since it started. Today, gold closed down a little bit, around 48.50 an ounce, 4,850 an ounce. And I keep telling you, if you see gold spiking, 6,000, 7,000 ounce, that is something to be concerned about in terms of the economy down the road. So, as for all intents and purposes, the economic numbers stay fine. A top Iran official, another one, is dead. They've killed like 3 top officials just in the last couple days, and these were people that were, very important in terms of the day-to-day operations of the country, right? These people, the best way to explain it is these people would be like cabinet members, okay? Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, of course, Secretary of War, excuse me. Those type of high-level government positions. 3 of the top people in the Iranian government that I'm sure weren't shocked when that bomb fell on their head, just as it's taken out. I think last count was about 100 of the leaders. Still no sign of the dead dear leader's son. Of course, earlier in the week there were rumors he had a concussion, or he was in a coma, had his leg amputated. Then a lot of rumors he was gay. Last night I shared with you that his father, the dead dear leader, thought his son was stupid. But we've had no proof of life. But the people that have been taken out in the last few days were literally key people in the running of the country. Trump set up. I've told you really over the last couple of days, hit it a little bit harder last night, that Trump set up these NATO countries. And they walked right into his trap. Okay. Of course, he asked these NATO countries, he said, hey, come help us out, open up the straits, get some of your warships and, help us escort these oil tankers through the Straits of Hormuz, so we get all that oil flowing again. And with the understanding that it's been noted that over 20% of the world's oil flows through the Straits. A fraction that comes to the United States for whatever reason. Usually, probably some fertilizer contracts or whatever. But 80% of it goes to China at cheap prices because with all the sanctions on Iran, they're not supposed to be selling so much oil. So China is able to buy it on the black market cheaper. And Europe, that's where Europe gets most of their oil. So it only made sense that Trump invited the NATO allies to come on board. And of course, we know that Meloni in Italy was a hard no. German Chancellor Merz, a hard no. The outgoing President of France, Emmanuel Macron, he was a hard no. And of course, we know Starmer was a hard no. And it really was telling, because there's been a pretty big movement in this country, notwithstanding some of the neocon lies that are out there from warmongers and war pigs like Lindsey Graham, how important NATO is. NATO was a post-World War II security operation that the United States has spent trillions on. Trillions. Never even a thank you. Remember in Trump's first term, he had to shame these countries into just meeting their 2% of GDP payment to NATO every year, because we were over it. But 90% of the countries just weren't, like Trump said, they were delinquent, as the good real estate guy would say. They were delinquent. And he shamed them, pretty much all of them, to getting caught up. This time he came in and said, really it needs to be 5%. Again, a lot of those countries jumped in. That's why Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, loves Trump, because of the billions and billions he's been able to shake loose from these other countries. But there's still a loud call. I'm in that camp that says the heck with NATO. They don't do anything for us. They aren't even thankful for what we've done for them. And with Trump putting these countries on Front Street and having them basically say, I think we'll pass on this one. A lot of people, had the thought that Trump's getting ready to exit NATO, which may be true. I'd love to see it. And then you got this Stube guy, to the head of Finland, and boy, did he say the quiet part out loud. All the NATO countries, they all hate Putin, and they see Ukraine, not because they like Ukraine, because it may bring down Putin, which that was how this latest iteration of the war in 2022 began. Again, Victoria Nuland, the State Department witch, who actually started that whole war going back during Obama's tenure in 2014. Stupid Finland said, well, if Trump supports Ukraine, we'll help the United States out in the Straits of Hormuz. No. Help Ukraine? We pumped $250 billion down that black, corrupt hole called Ukraine. Not to mention all the military assets we gave them, which a lot of those we could actually use right now, okay? No, you're not gonna box us in. Well, if you start giving Ukraine billions in military hardware again, well, we might help you. Take it and leave it, okay? And then we find out today that Poland is actually sending a couple aircraft carriers to the Gulf. Good for the Polish. And then tonight, again, NATO Secretary Rutte, I'm sure he's been pressuring these NATO guys, saying, you guys are going to mess around and Trump's going to pull out of NATO. Then what are you going to do? You haven't got any money. You haven't got any military might. Without the United States, there is no NATO. Let's just be honest. And tonight, as of tonight, right before the program, we find out now that obviously, as I mentioned, Poland's already sending a couple of their warships to the Straits. But tonight, Denmark says they're going to send some support, some military support. Now, why is Denmark interested? Oh, that's right. Denmark, controls a place called Greenland. And I've always told you that a byproduct of this war, a byproduct of the oil shortage in Europe, might be very beneficial in moving that situation along where we get control. Then you got tonight Macron. Well, I know it's a hard no, but we might think about that. Okay. So you got a couple of them, him and Han, but only right now Poland so far is actually doing something. So we'll see how that goes down, because again, if a byproduct of this whole thing at Iran is getting out of NATO, that's a good thing for us, just to be honest. And I'm not an isolationist. I'm not, naive about, the need to protect Europe and all that. But so here's something that I heard through the grapevine today that sounds kind of interesting. What if Trump, let's say in the next few days, they've pretty much done all the damage that they could do to Iran. And Trump says, yep, we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish and we're going home. And the straits are still closed. Don't forget, the Straits of Hormuz being closed doesn't affect us at all. We got oil, all the oil we will ever need, right under our, as Trump says, right under our own feet. Okay? Not to mention the oil we control out of Venezuela. Trump, I'm going to share with you in a minute how he's, basically just ran right over Gavin Newsom as far as oil sitting off the coast of California, and he basically overrode a bunch of California environmentalist garbage and started pumping oil off the shore of California. We've got plenty of oil. We don't need it. What if we just, next few days we, went on our normal bombing runs and we pretty much, and Trump says, we took out they have no military anymore. They have no military facilities anymore. They certainly are in no position to ever have a nuke. And we said, okay, we've accomplished all we can do here. We're going. Goodbye. But the straits are still closed. You know what that means? That means China and Europe are going to have to somehow figure out, they're the ones that need that oil. They're the ones that need the oil. So it's setting up to be very interesting. Okay, let me just leave it at that. And I do believe, because Trump's not stupid, I believe that we're going to be done with Iran. I think probably in that 4 to 6 week time frame he said. We're coming up on 3 weeks this weekend. I mean, if we're out sometime next week, late next week, that'd be 4 weeks. That's what the man said, so we'll see. Trump, as I mentioned, restarted a California pipeline. California gas, just so you know, is $6 a gallon. Just, and so you understand, why is gas so expensive in California? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, $2 a gallon is just California taxes. Where in most states, you might be paying 50 cents a gallon, or 50 cents a gallon in various taxes. California is $2. So whatever it is in your state, add $2 right on top of that just for California taxes. $1 a gallon is, again, tacked on for all the environmentalist nonsense in California. And obviously, California is in a financial wreck. They're not going to ever lift those numbers. And it's going to be interesting because Trump basically superseded the state in an emergency and has restarted the pipeline in California that will start bringing a lot of oil into California. But can I tell you what's going to happen? I can already tell you what's going to happen. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be telling you tomorrow night. And if I'm not, it'll be Friday night. But it's going to be tomorrow Friday. I'm going to be telling you on this program tomorrow Friday that, shock of all shocks, Gavin's going to go to court, challenge Trump being able to restart this pipeline for environmental reasons. And here you go. It's going to get bogged down in the courts. I mean, that doesn't take any genius to know that that's coming. Because it's obvious after, 13, 14 months, anything Trump does is going right to the courts. That's the only lever they've got left. They don't control the House. They don't control the Senate. They don't control the White House. They don't control the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, the only thing they've got are these rogue judges at the state and the district court level, and in some cases, even the district appellate level. But for the record, the Trump administration has won, I think, over 97% of the cases that have been worked up to the Supreme Court. That's unheard of. But not really when you understand that these cases these rulings were by these judges, which we will get to, hang on, were just garbage rulings, pure political rulings by these hacks in robes that had no foundation in the law itself, which is why they get turned over. You had a couple of hearings today. It's a busy morning. And it was a show for the deep state. One of the hearings, of course, was the nomination of Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullins to be the new head of DHS. I heard some very disturbing words out of his mouth as far as going back to this whole, well, you know, we're just going to focus on the worst of the worst. No, anybody that's here illegally technically is the worst of the worst. But with the midterms coming up, with all the attention they drew in Minneapolis, and again, don't forget why all the media was focused in Minneapolis. ICE was operating in every state, didn't have those problems. But I'm very concerned that Mullins is not going to be as focused on absolute deportation, meaning if you're here illegal, I don't care if you're a rapist, a murderer, or little grandma. If you're not legally here, you got to go. So we'll keep an eye on that. But of course, the Democrats, even some Republicans, are just. And again, this is a manifestation of the deep state. They want this country run over by illegals. That's why Obama did it once he had the reins after they stole the 2020 election. And then another hearing, you had CIA Director John Ratcliffe, ODNI Tulsi Gabbard. What a brave woman she is. Well, they hate her. And the deep state hates her because she's not keeping things covered up like they want. And FBI Director Kash Patel. And again, they fear Tulsi. And you know what else they fear, which was obvious? They fear the FBI having all the 2020 ballots and election materials from Fulton County, and the FBI having all the 2020 ballots and election materials from Maricopa County, which is Phoenix. Because when they open the blinds and let the light shine in, and it becomes patently obvious to anybody that wants to at least be honest that the 2020 election is stolen, it starts unwinding 10 years of criminal activity. It is really the linchpin of just opening up all the various fraud, starting with Russia, the 2020 election being so blatantly stolen. Clearly, they are fearful of. And you know they're fearful of it for the simple fact that they were honing in on Tulsi. Well, why were you at Fulton County? You know, you're not supposed to be involved in domestic issues. You're the ODNI. Well, she's involved because of foreign interference. Yeah, foreign interference. Well, we talked about that last night. That Chris Wray, FBI director, Chris Krebs. Now he ran something called CISA. Right after the 2020 election, he was on all the networks, especially the corporate networks, the ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC. Most fair, clean election we've ever had. I mean, and here's the thing. We now know from documents that have been declassified, again, Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe, the CIA helped. We know that Iran breached our U.S. election systems in 2020, stole hundreds of thousands of records that were then used to create foreign ballots. Okay, if you're overseas, military, or you live overseas, or maybe you're on vacation for 3 months in the south of France, right? Whatever. I mean, we've got several million people that vote overseas. Well, when Iran breached these U.S. election systems in 2020, they used that information to create ballots for Joe Biden as coming from, U.S. citizens living abroad. Okay? Totally fraudulent. And then last night I told you that China hacked into over 15 states' voter systems, and I'm talking about the voter data system, just the raw voter name, address, social security number, all that kind of stuff, right? And we know, again, Tulsi Gabbard, that our intelligence community in 2020 knew it, didn't tell Trump, who was president at the time, of course, didn't tell the American people. So, I mean, 2020, that fraud is really close to just blowing up. And when it does, it's going to open so many doors. FBI whistleblower during the Russia nonsense, going back to 2016, has reported, and this has, been checked out. It's been received by Congress, checked out, that a lot of the FBI agents that were working on even though they knew there was no Russia hoax, everybody knew it was a lie, that Russia was a ginned up charge from the Hillary Clinton campaign to take the focus off of her illegal server, okay? But agents that were working on it, despite knowing it was a lie, drunk on the job, they were plastering anti-Trump cartoons all over the walls of their various offices. And they were literally doctoring records to cover up their political bias. I mean, all this is going on, folks. And again, anybody that's been watching this program for the last 10 years, we've talked about this stuff forever. Of course, we were, labeled as conspiracy theorists, and, it's all been debunked, and we've heard these lies over. You went to 62 courts and you lost everyone, when the reality is they went to 62 courts and not one court ever heard the actual relevant facts. They threw the cases out without even hearing one piece of evidence because they just didn't want to deal with it. And again, it was a cover-up. It was a cover-up. Fed Chairman Jerome Too Slow Powell, they had an emergency meeting because of the Iran situation. Been a great time to cut the rates by, I think, at least 50 basis points, minimum of 25. Of course, they didn't lower the rates anything. This guy is such a... You want to talk deep state? Boy, the one thing that Rand Paul and his wacky father, Ron Paul, have been right about, probably the only thing, is about this institution called the Fed. Never been audited. I mean, God only knows the grotesque games that you want to talk about the deep state. That's the deep state's bank. Okay, let me just put it to you that way. Autism therapy, massive fraud operations all over the country. I have always contended our federal, we take in $5 trillion a year in revenues in this country. We spend $7 trillion, so we're like a negative $2 trillion a year. But I contend the $7 trillion we spend every year, I think probably half of it, and I may be low. It might be $4 trillion, but at least $3.5 trillion is sucked up in waste, fraud, and abuse. Primarily, though, fraud. Listen to this. In 2019, Medicare paid out $660 million in autism claims, okay, for people who were being seen by doctors and treated for autism. 2019, okay, 660. In 2023, 4 years later, it had bumped up to $2.2 billion. Again, go after all that Somali fraud in Minneapolis. It's not just Somali fraud. It's because I'm sure at the end of the day, it's white people fraud that's probably, towers over the Somali fraud, just to be honest. But that fraud exists everywhere. We talked about California, 8 years ago. California paid out like 1 million in autism treatments. 5 years later, they paid out 343 million. Just unbelievable. The fraud in the Medicare system is just absolutely unbelievable. Oscars were down 10% from last year's putrid numbers, and I shared last night they've already determined that the Oscars will continue to be on, basically free network television next year, which is year 99, and then 2028 will be year 100, the 100th year of the Oscars. But after that, starting in 2029, it's going on some kind of a streaming service where people have to pay to watch it. Not that anybody's really watching it to begin with. Trump's trip to China has been officially now postponed. It's still supposedly going to be on, but it's not going to be really booked again until after the Iran situation. And that makes sense. Scotland, God bless the folks in Scotland. They voted down an assisted suicide law for Scotland. That's one of the few countries that has voted that down. So God bless those folks in Scotland. That's great. Delcy Rodriguez, who's running Venezuela for the Trump administration, she got rid today. The Minister of Defense. Now, in a what used to be a dictatorial strongman type regime, I've always told you that the head of the military always is just lavished with incredible amounts of money, because a guy like Kim Jong-un, I mean, if the military turned on him, he'd be dead tomorrow. Controlling the military in these type of regimes is critical. And Rodriguez, which to me only proves that they are, basically playing ball with Trump as far as reforming the country to get rid of the powerful Minister of Defense. That's a big deal. That's a real big deal. Two things that I've been hitting you with, and I'm sorry, I'm going to do it again. If you went to, say, go live in Italy, or if you're like that idiot Rosie O'Donnell, where is she at? Ireland? I think she went to Ireland. Whatever. If you're a U.S. citizen and you decide to move and relocate to another country, and let's just say you denounce your citizenship, right? The fact is, because you weren't born in that country, you could never hold public office. These countries aren't stupid. They only want people born in their country running their government offices. I mean, what a novel idea. And I've been yelling about this for years, but it's just become so obvious with people like Omar and so many of these people that are literally in Congress that hate this country, that were born somewhere else. There should be a law that at any level of government, whether it's the city level, the county level, the state level, certainly the federal level, if you are not born in the United States, you don't get to hold elected office. No other country on this planet is stupid enough to let that happen. Yeah, go move to Shanghai and try to run for dog catcher of Shanghai. Huh. And then, of course, the other one, which I know it's upset some people. I've got the emails, but I'm sorry. We do have a national security issue in this country with Muslims. That's just a fact. Anybody denies it's just denying reality. And I have been, hinting for a while, because I don't waste your time with a bunch of pie in the sky nonsense. And while there's probably only one person in this country with the testicular fortitude to do this, I can't ever see it happening. But there should be a push that any person that is part of the Muslim religious political ideology, because it is both. It's a religious ideology and a political ideology. Any person in this country that's a Muslim on a green card or on a visa, both of which are privileges, okay? They're not rights. You don't have a right to get a visa to come here. You don't have a right to get a green card to stay here. Those are privileges. Those privileges should be revoked. Let's say for a 10-year period, and we'll review it after 10 years. Obviously, anyone who's an actual citizen of this country, either naturalized or born here, that becomes a little bit of a different situation. But at least let's get the green card holders and the visa holders out of here. Joe Kent, this thing has exploded. Now, last night, I mentioned that I believed one of the reasons he resigned and why he resigned in such a public way really made me kind of start thinking in this direction, because there's been rumors for a while that Joe Kent was leaking classified information, primarily to the press, to damage the Trump administration. Now, let me just say up front that Joe Kent, I think he did 11 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, okay? I mean, nothing will ever take away his military service to this country. On top of that, he had a wife who was in the military, and she actually died in battle in Syria years ago, leaving him a widower with 2 kids. So technically, he's a Gold Star husband, okay? And his wife died for our country. None of those things can ever be taken away. But you know who else was a military hero? People that don't know history may not even know this. Everybody's heard of Benedict Arnold, right? Benedict Arnold, his traitorous actions in the Revolutionary War were so serious because he was a military hero, a U.S. military hero. He was running at that time what we now know as West Point. I mean, he was no joke as far as his military service. I mean, he was a decorated military hero, which made what he did in betraying his country just that much more despicable. And I'm not putting Joe Kent on the same level as Benedict Arnold. But the fact is, we find out today, and I'm just going to say I was right last night. He resigned yesterday because he had to know he's under investigation by the FBI for leaking classified information. That's something that can put you in jail. All right? And he had to know that, because he was the director of national counterintelligence, so he was in the intelligence world, and again having access to incredible secrets. At what makes what he did, if it's proven, just it's no different what Arnold did, just to be honest with you. Now, here is where Joe Kent just has lost all of any credibility he may have had. He said the reason that he resigned yesterday was because he didn't think we should be in this war. He never saw anything that legitimized what we're doing in Iran. And this is unconscionable that we're over there involved in a military conflict. Okay, that's the reason he gave for resigning. But there's some problems with that. One problem is not that long ago, a few years ago, on his Twitter account, he talked about the danger of Iran and the fact that, you know, if they ever got a nuke, the world would be an incredibly dangerous place. And I mean, he was very open about his concern regarding the number one state sponsor of terror in the world. Yet in his resignation yesterday, he would make people believe that he was totally against this war. Now, here's something else I shared with you last night, and that's another reason why what we find out today, that he is under criminal investigation by the FBI for leaking classified information. We don't know any of the details, where it was leaked to or whatever, most likely the media. But what we also found out today is that they had frozen out Joe Kent from all Iran meetings. In other words, he had been frozen out of any meetings regarding Iran because of, you know, he obviously had been a suspicious person for a while. And if you've got a suspicion that somebody at his stature in the government, director of counterintelligence, might be leaking classified, you're certainly not going to put him in the loop as far as what we were getting ready to do in Iran. So, and then he ended his, you know, resignation letter, which again, Trump blew the whole thing out of the water today with his tweet from a couple years ago, where Kent went on and on and on about how dangerous Iran is and how we can't ever let them have a nuke and they're the most dangerous, blah, blah, blah. Yet in his resignation letter, he said that Iran was never going to get a nuke. That was just hype that was just an excuse to go in their military. His credibility is zero. It even went further, because at the end he said that Trump was basically being controlled by who? Israel. That he was a puppet of Israel. So guess whose podcast he was on today? Oh, that'd be Tucker Carlson, who no doubt is getting gobs of money. Now, I'm sure it's not coming from some, you know, bank account that says the anti-Israel bank account, but that's in essence where he's getting money. Like I told you last night, these podtainers are there to sell their voice to the highest bidder. And so he was on Tucker's podcast today. I haven't had a chance to hear it yet, but I read through a little bit of the transcript this evening. And again, you know, he's right on the same page with Tucker that Israel runs the world, and instead of being Putin's puppet, which we know is a lie, now Trump is supposedly Netanyahu's puppet and doing the bidding of Israel. So that's the Joe Kent thing. Now, I hate to say I told you so, and I waited into the program before I did this. I didn't want to start that way, okay? Because I don't like when people, well, I told you so. But on this one, I can't help it, okay? Because for months and months and months now, probably about from the 6-month mark of Trump's, you know, second term, which would be last June or July, I started warning you about what was going to happen if the Democrats ever got control again, as far as what they were going to do to Trump, his inner circle. That was verified, less than 6 weeks ago, by none other than one of Obama's top people, Susan Rice, okay, National Security Director. And she obviously played a key role in the running of the country during brain-dead Biden's 4 years. And I say that because she basically ran the domestic part of our country's operations and literally had an office right outside the Oval Office. which of course Joe never used. The only time he was in the Oval Office was the fake Oval Office, because he needed that 70-inch monitor to read his 3-minute speeches. It wouldn't fit in the real Oval Office. But right in an office right next to the real Oval Office for 2.5 years was who? Oh, Susan Rice. Imagine that. But now you got big boy J.B. Pritzker, Illinois governor J.B. Pritzker. Man, he couldn't help himself. He got in some kind of an interview, and I got to tell you something. It was like watching, a little 12, 13-year-old girl gossiping with their buddies about the cute boy in math class. Okay, I mean, he was so, effervescent. So, I've never seen JB so happy. He was in an interview, and in this interview, he was bragging about Project 2029. Now, of course, nobody's ever heard of Project 2029. So, of course, JB had to tell the audience what Project 2029 was. Would you like to know what Project 2029 was? Let me tell you. It is a project that as soon as Trump is out of office, to criminally prosecute him and top officials in his administration. Now again, if you are a faithful watcher of this program, this is not news, because I've been warning you this was going to happen, like I said, for the last 7-8 months now. But JB, he he was just so happy to tell people that Project 2029 is a very real, coordinated effort that once Trump is gone, to criminally prosecute him and his top administration officials. Now I know the natural question is, but what are they going to prosecute him for? What if they didn't commit a crime? After what they did to Trump when they stole the election and he was out of office from 21 till he won re-election 24, that 3.5 year. Do I have to remind you that they indicted him twice federally, 3 times in New York State of New York, once in a massive RICO case in Georgia, and they had nothing to prosecute. They were literally making up crimes out of New York. And at the end of the day, every one of those cases literally fell apart because they were garbage cases. And the few in New York that did kind of make it through that corrupt justice system in New York, they're all on appeal, and they're all going to get overturned on appeal because, again, they made up laws. So when you question me, well, what are they going to charge him with, Bill? What are they going to charge this? They don't need any real laws to charge it, but they'll make them up if they need to. Okay. He then talked about Democratic-friendly NGOs. Boy, again, if you're a regular listener to this program, you are very aware of these non-government organizations that they love. A lot of them are non-profits, so they don't even have to pay taxes. And their coffers get filled up with these mega donors like Steve Jobs' widow, the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos, that Singham guy, the tech billionaire that's living in Shanghai right now, funding a lot of the anti-Israel stuff, right? He said Democratic-friendly NGOs are going to be filing civil suits to financially destroy top Republican figures through damages and nonstop litigation. I mean, this is they've literally thought this thing through. This is a plan that they put together. And again, you're going to have no shortage of Trump-hating judges, Trump-hating juries, Trump-hating prosecutors. We saw what they can do during the whole J6 nonsense, how they just run over people's constitutional rights, take people who had exemplary lives, treat them like they're the worst terrorists in the world, put them in solitary, beat them up in prison. I mean, just it's incredibly brutal things. So these people will have no problem accomplishing this if they ever get the levers of power, okay? Now, here is at least a potential answer. If you remember on his way out the door, Joe Biden's auto pen signed hundreds of pardons for Fauci, that traitor General Mark Mealy, okay? Just tons of people. The whole January 6th Kangaroo Committee, Benny Thompson, Pelosi got a pardon, Liz Cheney got a pardon, Crying Kissinger, Adam Shifty Schiff, Jamie Rapp, they all got pardons, right? But the interesting thing about these pardons is a pardon is normally given to a person after they've been convicted of a crime. These pardons were issued to people preemptively where they weren't even charged with anything, let alone convicted of anything. These are just like global pardons for anything they may have done that they might be prosecuted with down the road. There is a very, very huge legal argument whether these pardons are even legitimate because nothing like that's ever been done before. Nobody's ever tried to rig the pardon system in such a way. You know, the one good pardon we know is for his incestuous reprobate crackhead kid Hunter. That's one pardon he actually did sign himself, and it was for the crimes he committed, the gun crime in Delaware, the tax crimes out of California. I mean, and he pled guilty to both. So Hunter actually had crimes that he'd been convicted of that he was being pardoned for. But the rest of these were all preemptive pardons. There is no clear understanding whether these pardons are even worth the paper they're written on, let alone the auto pen that signed them. That's a whole other thing. Trump his legal people have got to bring a charge against somebody like Fauci. Because the first thing Fauci's going to do is his lawyer's going to go into court and show the judge the pardon and say, hey, they can't charge us for that. We got this pardon. And of course, the government's going to challenge the legality of the pardon. The reason I say this is something the Trump administration must do, and probably should do it fairly quickly, is so that we get legal rulings on these preemptive pardons. Because if a judge says, yep, those pardons are good, now you've got a legal precedent. Because on the way out of office, let's say Trump hands out 1,000 pardons to all of his cabinet, all of his top people, and Steve Miller and Susie Wild, everybody gets a pardon on the way out. I can promise you, without a legal precedent, they're going to have no problem finding one of these garbage judges, especially in D.C., to say those pardons aren't worth the paper they're written on. Don't doubt for a second that they would laugh at those pardons. But the fact is, they've never been tested legally. And if you do get a legal opinion that says, well, you know, you can't prosecute Fauci because Fauci's got a pardon signed by Joe Biden, the auto pen, and they will uphold the pardon. Now, if they uphold the pardon, good. Then we know, now we've got a legal precedent that these pardons are upheld. Good. And out the door, at least as a way of hopefully giving some cover to Trump and his people, just put together a bunch of these what they call global pardons for things you haven't even been charged with. But they better run it through the courts now to find out. And the courts may look at it and say, no, Fauci, this pardon's garbage. Which will do two things. Prosecute that horrible human being, number one. But at least you know at the end of the Trump term, he's not going to be able to use pardons as a way of circumventing Project 2029 that Pritzker just was so happy to tell the world about. Yeah, we got him covered. We got him covered. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And again, for this audience, you know this is no shock to you guys because I've been telling you about this. All right, let me just take a few minutes and get you through this judiciary issue because it's a real problem, okay? And again, we've kind of talked about it in so many different, on so many different issues, but I wanted to highlight it for you because this is incredibly important. And we've got these organizations now, these anti-immigrant or these pro-immigration organizations that are literally holding seminars for potential jurors, either in trial juries or grand juries, how to basically make sure that ICE cases aren't even brought by not giving them a true bill, by not indicting them. And if they do get indicted, even if they're guilty, to teach juries how to nullify the crime. In other words, even if they're guilty, they just won't vote. They'll vote not guilty. Okay, so there's seminars. You can actually go online and you can read these instructions how to do it. It is disgusting. And anything that has to do with a Trump case, that's what they're targeting. And of course, you've got these rogue judges out there that are not even paying attention to law. We talked earlier about the number of Trump cases that went to the Supreme Court, and he was successful. An incredible percentage, like over 98%. That never happens. But they're happening because these rulings by these judges are just garbage. And I told you last night about John Roberts. He was in some kind of an interview over the weekend, and he was really going hard about how they've got, they have got to, meaning Trump, demeaning these judges and denouncing these rulings, like the garbage tariff ruling, very sensitive and very sensitive to the criticism of these other judges. Well, they're being criticized because they're making rulings not based on the law, but based on politics. And John Roberts really should be concerned that he's not reining these lawless judges in who are literally destroying the criminal justice system. I mean, to be blunt with you, so many of our state courts, so many of our federal courts at the initial district level, those judges, they make North Korean judges, Russian judges look like legal scholars. I mean, you probably have a better chance getting a good ruling in North Korea than Washington, D.C. I'm not being facetious. I'm not being, hyperbolic. That's true. We've been watching it. In D.C., Judge Janine, she can't get anybody indicted because these D.C. Juries, even the grand juries, which you've always heard, well, they can indict a ham sandwich. No, they can't, because in the grand jury, you have no defense counsel. You only have one side of the story. And it's a very low bar to get somebody indicted because all you've got is a prosecutor, and all they got to do is show the grand jury these are the crimes. Now, they haven't been refuted, they haven't been challenged legally, but it starts in the grand jury room and then it moves forward. And rarely does a grand jury ever not return an indictment. Heck, Jeanine Pirro's had probably, 4 or 5 just in the last 2 months from these D.C. grand juries. Places like D.C., New York, L.A., Chicago, these big cities, Minneapolis. You got these, rogue prosecutors, rogue U.S. attorneys. And Trump can't replace him because the Democrats are holding up all those U.S. attorney nominations in the Senate. Another reason why this horrible human being, John Thune, needs to get rid of the filibuster so Trump can get his U.S. attorneys on board, because a lot of the ones there are not appointed by Trump. They're there from Biden, and they're doing everything they can to ruin these otherwise great cases between the judges and the prosecutors. And a good example is January 6th. Do you know they won 100% of their January 6th cases? That's because you had rogue prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Matthew Graves was the lead one, and all over the country that violated people's rights, that ran roughshod over the system. And that's why you need honest judges to not let that happen. But the judges just shut their eyes and let it happen because they were on board with the whole process. You see how dangerous this is? You see how it actually destroys the rule of law? And once that's gone, you've got anarchy now. Anarchy. You know, they've got they have got these people in Minneapolis. Don't forget, they've been charged with a bunch of different crimes, but the main one is violation of the FACE Act. That's what they were putting old ladies who were praying in abortion clinics. That's what they were putting old ladies in their 70s and 80s in federal prison using the FACE Act. And nobody can look at those videos of the invasion of that church in St. Paul, led by Don Lemon, by the way. And you want to talk about slam dunk? But here's the problem. They've got 30 people under indictment, which means they're going to have 30 people going to trial on these cases, including Don Lemon. But they're going to go before a Minneapolis jury that's obviously been tainted like you can't believe because of all the anti-ICE stuff. You've got rogue Democratic-appointed federal judges that are going to bend over backwards to help the defense attorneys, not the prosecutors, the defense attorneys. And all I'm telling you is, don't be shocked if at the end of the day, despite being guilty beyond any imagination, that these people that invaded that church violated the FACE Act and other laws. Don't be shocked if they all get off. Yep. And you see, we've just been talking about the new Project 2029, where they're going to use the judiciary to extract pounds of flesh out of their political enemies. So on the one side, they're going to protect real criminals. And on the other side, they're going to let people walk that should be in prison. It is a massive problem, folks. It's called jury nullification, and probably the best example of that, to be honest with you, has to be the O.J. case, okay? Nobody in their right mind thinks that O.J. Simpson, Orenthal James Simpson, okay, didn't kill his ex-wife and Ron Goldman. Or was that his name? Ron Goldman. Nobody in their right mind. And the evidence they had, the evidence was overwhelming. And even as pathetic as Darden and Marcia Clark, boy, talk about names coming out of a cloud. As pathetic as prosecutors as Darden and Marcia Clark were, they still had so much evidence. Nobody in their right mind could have ever not believed that Simpson did this. But guess what? O.J. got acquitted, didn't he? It's called jury nullification. And don't forget, in a criminal trial, it only takes one juror to hang the jury. You can have 11 jurors, that saw the evidence and killed him beyond any reasonable doubt. And all it takes is one say, no, I'm not there. And they could be there because they weren't convinced by the evidence, or they could be there because they've got an ulterior motive. Okay? You know, you got this disgusting chief judge right now, the D.C. Circuit, Jeb Boasberg, who just happens to be good buddies with John Roberts. Can't make this up. That guy is the classic example of a rogue judge. And you know what? The Republicans in the House, they could impeach him tomorrow and get him out of there. Or they could cut off the funds to all the district courtrooms in D.C. And guess what? They can't operate. That's what a real, Republican Party, they should have done that day one after all the nonsense with the J6ers. They haven't lifted a finger. Haven't lifted a finger. And like I said, they've, and then, what was it? Just a week ago Friday, Judge Jeanine was on TV screaming her lungs out. And man, I would not want to be on the wrong side of Judge Jeanine. She's no joke, okay? I mean, I know she's a little older lady and everything, but she's feisty. I wouldn't want to be on her wrong side. She went to the grand jury to present evidence to the grand jury to get an indictment against the Fed, not even Powell personally. He's lied about that. She was not trying to get an indictment against him, but against the Fed as an agency for $1 billion of cost overruns. Boasberg stepped in and quashed the subpoena so the grand jury couldn't even hear it to protect the Fed. And his legal reasoning for quashing the subpoena was pure nonsense, legal fantasies. That's why I said John Roberts is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He is the only one. Now, he can't make these judges behave and rule correctly. There used to be a time not that long ago when a judge was shamed if they ever had a ruling come back against them, either overturned on appeal by the appellate division or the Supreme Court. I mean, that was like the worst thing that could happen to a judge, because it meant you didn't do your job, most likely, right? They don't care. These are activists, rogue activists in robes, and they are destroying our judiciary. And again, once you lose the judiciary, it's anarchy. If you don't have the rule of law, you've got anarchy. Let me say one last thing. I'm closing it down for the night. I was in my office today, and I was, working and doing all I had. I couple screens going, and I looked up, and Trump was getting on Marine One, his helicopter, to go from the White House to the pay his respects when the remains of those 6 heroes that died in the tanker plane crash, their bodies came back to our country today, and he was there to honor them and to pay his respects to their families. And I'm just going to tell you my bare thought: do with it what you want. I looked up on one of my screens, and he was getting into Marine One, the helicopter. I saw the helicopter, as it takes off in the White House lawn and heads out. And God told me at that moment, pray for Trump whenever he's on those helicopters. I don't know why God said that. I immediately stopped what I was doing and said a prayer, and I'm just going to share that with you. Air Force One is very sophisticated in terms of the defensive operations on that aircraft. I mean, you're not going to take out Air Force One with like a surface-to-air missile or anything like that. It's just not going to happen. They've pretty much predicted any potential way that somebody can mess with Air Force One. Okay, and I'm sure Marine One's got a lot of defenses too. Okay, it's not like it's just some carnival helicopter ride. All right, but for whatever reason, God just put that in my heart today. And why, I don't know. It's one of those things where I just don't question it. I just obey. And I'm sharing with you tonight. And just encouraging you, just say a prayer tonight for President Trump's protection. If you thought they wanted him dead before the 2024 election, oh my goodness. If it was at an 8 or a 9 on a threat meter before the election of 2024, after 13, 14 months down office with all that's gone on with the tariffs and the war and everything, if it was an 8 before 2024, it probably was closer to a 9. It's a 52 tonight, okay? Just pray for God to keep his hand of protection over the president. And just say a prayer about that helicopter. I don't know why God put it in my head, but he did. All right. Great program. Hey, you know what? We're all caught up. Man, that's a great feeling, isn't it? Great feeling. All right, before we get out of here tonight, and we're not all caught up until I ask you to listen to me. And if you're watching tonight, you've never made a commitment to Christ, you've never made that confession of faith, and listen, that's between you and God and your heart, and you know if you've done it or you know if you haven't. Okay, this is simple. No pressure, no, nothing from me. I'm just giving you an invitation, an opportunity that if you haven't done that, but you want to make that commitment to Christ tonight, pray with me. Dear Lord, I come to you this night, a sinner, asking you, God, tonight to forgive me of all my sins. Lord, this night I believe in my heart and I confess with my mouth that Jesus is my Lord, my Savior. And tonight, I do surrender my life to you. I give my life to you. I am yours now and forevermore. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Praise God. My friend, if you made that commitment, the Bible says you're saved, not because you said a few words, because of your faith in God's grace. Have a book I'll send you. It won't cost you anything. Drop me an email, bkellerliveprayer.com. I'll get it out to you. If you need prayer for anything, don't hesitate to email me, bkellerliveprayer.com. All right. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night. Get a good night's sleep. For those of you who are basketball fans or occasional basketball fans, tomorrow starts March Madness. But pray you have a good night's sleep, a great day tomorrow. And Lord willing, we'll be back here with you for the Thursday night edition of Live Prayer at 11 o'clock Eastern. God bless you.
What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're